Struggling black widower bought 19-year-old girl who was being auctioned off by her father. The smell of fresh sawdust filled Isaiah Carter's workshop as the afternoon sun streamed through the windows. His calloused hands moved expertly across the wooden surface, sanding down the edges of what would become a bookshelf for Mrs. Jenkins, down the street. The rhythmic motion was therapeutic, one of the few things that still brought him peace since Regina had passed. 2 years had gone by, but the hole she'd left behind remained unfilled, its edges still jagged and raw. "Dad?" Tyrell's voice cut through his thoughts. Isaiah looked up to see his 12-year-old son standing in the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes watchful as they always were these days. "There's a car outside. Fancy one." Isaiah frowned, setting down his tools. They didn't get many visitors in this part of town, let alone ones with fancy cars. He wiped his hands on his work pants and followed Tyrell out to the front yard. The black Lincoln Town car looked out of place on their modest street. When the back door opened, Isaiah's heart sank. Marcus Hollow, or what was left of him, his childhood friend, once tall and robust, now looked like a sketch of himself, hollowed out by the cancer that was claiming him inch by inch. "Marcus?" Isaiah rushed forward as his friend struggled to stand, dismissing his driver with a weak wave. "Man, what are you doing here? You should… in bed? In hospice? Waiting to die quietly?" Marcus's laugh turned into a rattling cough. "I've been doing plenty of that. Thought I'd see what the outside world looks like while I still can." Isaiah helped him into the house, noting how light Marcus felt against him, like a bird with hollow bones. Tyrell hovered nervously in the background, eyes wide at the sight of the dying man. "Ty, this is Mr. Hollowell. We grew up together before his family moved to the big estate outside town." Isaiah guided Marcus to their worn couch. "Can you get us some water, son?" Tyrell nodded, disappearing into the kitchen. "That's a good boy you've got there," Marcus said, his breathing labored. "Got Regina's eyes?" Isaiah nodded, a familiar ache blooming in his chest at the mention of his late wife. "Yeah, he does. Smart like her too." He cleared his throat. "Marcus, why are you here? Last I heard, you were at that fancy treatment center in Houston." Marcus's eyes, sunken but still sharp, fixed on Isaiah. "Treatment didn't take. I've got weeks, maybe a month. I'm going home to die in my own bed." He paused as Tyrell returned with water, thanking the boy with a gentle nod before continuing. "Isaiah, I need to ask you something. Something big." Isaiah recognized the gravity in his friend's voice. They'd grown up side by side until Marcus's family had whisked him away to their ancestral estate when they were teenagers. The Hollowells were old money, plantation wealth that had diversified into banking and real estate. Despite their different paths, they'd maintained a bond over the years. When Regina had gotten sick, Marcus had been there, covering medical bills Isaiah couldn't hope to pay with a carpenter's wages. "Tyrell," Isaiah said gently, "why don't you go start your homework? I need to talk to Mr. Hollow alone." Once the boy had gone upstairs, Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick cream envelope with the Hollowell family seal. "The Hollowell Legacy Auction is happening next Saturday," he said. Isaiah frowned. He'd heard whispers about these auctions over the years. Exclusive gatherings where the elite Southern families made connections, solidified alliances, exchanged favors. It was the kind of old money tradition that had always made him uncomfortable. "Marcus, you know I don't belong in that world." "I'm not asking you to belong, I'm asking you to attend." Marcus's hand trembled as he held out the envelope. "As my guest." "Why, what could possibly…" "Amara." Marcus's voice cracked on the name. "My niece, my brother's daughter." He took a shuddering breath. "She's being offered this year." Isaiah stared, the meaning slowly dawning on him. "Offered? You mean, like a marriage arrangement?" The concept felt archaic, plucked from another century. "Yes," Marcus replied, his eyes full of shame. "She's 19, brilliant, fierce. Too outspoken for her own good in our family. My brother Thomas, he's using the auction to correct her course, as he puts it." Marcus's face darkened. "To break her spirit." A chill ran down Isaiah's spine. "That's…" He couldn't find the words. "Barbaric?" Marcus supplied. "Yes, but it's our tradition. One I've tried to change from within," But he gestured to his failing body. Time ran out. What do you expect me to do about it? Isaiah asked, genuine confusion in his voice. Marcus leaned forward, intensity burning through his sickness. Watch over her. That's all. Be there. Keep an eye on who's bidding. The men who attend these things, some are decent enough, but others, he trailed off, his meaning clear. I've set some things in motion, legal protections for Amara, but they'll take time to implement. I just need someone I trust to be there. Someone with clear eyes who isn't blinded by tradition or greed. Isaiah's mind reeled. Marcus, this sounds like something out of the 1800s. How is this even legal? It's not a legally binding marriage in the eyes of the state. But within our circle, these arrangements carry weight. Social contracts that can make or break a young person's future. Marcus coughed again, harder this time. I wouldn't ask if there was anyone else I could trust. Isaiah thought of his own struggles. The bills piling up, the mortgage barely covered each month, raising Tyrell alone while trying to keep his small business afloat. He'd been treading water since Regina died, some days barely keeping his head above the surface. The last thing he needed was to get involved in the twisted dynamics of an elite family he didn't understand. But then he thought of an unknown young woman, being traded like property. Marcus had been there for him during the darkest days of Regina's illness. He owed him. What exactly would I have to do? Isaiah asked, reluctantly. Relief flooded Marcus's gaunt face. Just attend, observe. I've included all the details in the envelope. Time, dress code, protocols. He reached for Isaiah's hand, gripping it with surprising strength. Don't let her end up with someone dangerous. That's all I ask. Watch over Amara. From upstairs came the faint sound of Tyrell playing his keyboard. Regina's old one. The boy had taken to music since his mother died, finding solace in the melodies she once played. Isaiah closed his eyes briefly, feeling the weight of another responsibility settling on his shoulders. Okay, he said finally, I'll be there. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, old friend. He began to stand, wobbling slightly. I should get back. The doctor only cleared me for a short outing. As Isaiah helped him back to the car, Marcus paused, looking at the modest house with its peeling paint and the workshop behind it. You know, Regina would be proud of you, keeping it all together for Tyrell. Isaiah swallowed hard. Some days I'm not sure I am keeping it together. You are, Marcus assured him, and after all this is done, let me help you. My will. Don't, Isaiah cut him off. I don't want to talk about your will, and I don't need charity. Marcus smiled sadly. It's not charity when it's family, and you're the closest thing to a brother I've ever had. After the Lincoln disappeared down the street, Isaiah stood in his front yard for a long time, the cream envelope heavy in his hand. Inside his workshop, unfinished projects waited. Bills needed paying. Tyrell needed help with his science project. His real life, complicated enough already, demanded his attention. Yet in 1 week he'd be stepping into a world so foreign it might as well be another country. A world of old money and older traditions, where young women were still offered to secure alliances. All because he couldn't say no to a dying friend. Isaiah looked up at the darkening sky, wondering what Regina would have advised. She'd always been his moral compass, his voice of reason. Without her, he sometimes felt lost at sea, navigating by stars he could barely make out. What am I getting myself into, Regina? He whispered to the evening air. The only answer was the distant sound of Tyrell's music floating through an open window, a melancholy tune that seemed to capture perfectly the unease settling in Isaiah's heart. The Hollow estate loomed against the evening sky, its white columns and sprawling grounds speaking of old money and older secrets. Isaiah tugged uncomfortably at his borrowed suit as he approached the mansion. He felt like an imposter, a working-class carpenter infiltrating the inner sanctum of Southern aristocracy. Inside, crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over the assembled guests. Men in tailored suits and women in designer dresses mingled with practiced ease, their laughter tinkling like the ice in their cocktail glasses. Isaiah accepted a flute of champagne from a passing server, more to have something to do with his hands than from any desire to drink. You look like you'd rather be facing a firing squad, came a voice at his elbow. An elderly gentleman with shrewd eyes studied him. First time at a Hollowell event? That obvious? Isaiah asked. Like a cardinal among crows, the man chuckled. James Whitfield, he extended his hand. Isaiah Carter, he replied, shaking the offered hand. Marcus's friend. He mentioned you'd be attending. His gaze sharpened. Quite unusual to have an outsider at one of these gatherings. Before Isaiah could respond, a bell rang. The crowd began moving toward the estate's east wing, through doors guarded by men who checked invitations with military precision. The auction's beginning, Whitfield said. Better find your place. The auction room resembled a small theater, with tiered seating facing a raised platform. Isaiah took a seat in the back row, watching as the elite of Southern society arranged themselves with the ease of people accustomed to such events. A distinguished man in his 60s took the stage, Thomas Hollowell, Marcus's brother and the family patriarch. His silver-streaked hair and patrician features projected authority, but Isaiah saw only coldness in his eyes. "Welcome, friends and allies," Thomas began, his voice carrying effortlessly. "For 2 centuries the Hollow Legacy Auction has strengthened our community's bonds. Tonight we continue this proud tradition. Several items were presented first: rare books, ancestral jewelry, hunting rights to exclusive properties." Isaiah watched, increasingly uncomfortable, as the wealthy bid astronomical sums with casual flicks of numbered paddles. Then Thomas's voice hardened. "And now, our final offering, one that requires a more discerning buyer." The room's atmosphere shifted. Men sat straighter. Women exchanged knowing glances. "My daughter, Amara Hollowell." 2 men escorted a young woman onto the stage. Isaiah's breath caught. She was striking, tall and slim with deep brown skin and defiant eyes that scanned the crowd with undisguised contempt. Her chin was raised, but Isaiah could see how tightly she gripped her hands together. "Unfortunately," Thomas continued, his voice cold, "Amara has proven herself willful and unmanageable. She has rejected suitable matches, embarrassed the family at social functions, and most recently, attempted to enroll in law school against my explicit wishes." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Isaiah felt sick. "She requires a firm hand," Thomas declared. "Someone who will correct these progressive notions and mold her into a proper Hollow woman." Amara's jaw tightened, but she remained silent, her eyes burning with repressed fury. "The starting bid is $100,000, announced the auctioneer. "For a binding alliance with the Hollowell family, including all associated benefits and connections." A paddle raised near the front. A corpulent man in his 50s whose gaze crawled over Amara like she was livestock. $100,000. $120, called another voice. $150, countered a third. Isaiah watched in horror as the bidding climbed. He thought of Marcus's words, "Don't let her end up with someone dangerous." The corpulent man raised his paddle again. $300,000. A hush fell over the room. The bid was significantly higher than the others, seemingly designed to end the competition immediately. $300,000 going once, the auctioneer intoned. Isaiah saw fear flash across Amara's face for the first time, quickly masked by her defiant expression. Going twice? In the fraction of a second before the gavel fell, Isaiah heard Regina's voice in his head, as clearly as if she were standing beside him. "Some things are worth any price." $500,000, Isaiah called out, his voice shattering the silence. All heads turned. Thomas Hollowell's eyes narrowed dangerously. "And who might you be, sir?" "Isaiah Carter." He stood, heart hammering. "Marcus Hollowell's friend." Shocked whispers swept through the room. On stage, Amara stared at him, confusion replacing her anger. "Mr. Carter," Thomas said icily, "this auction is for established families with the means to—" "I believe," interrupted Whitfield, "surprisingly, that your own rules state any invited guest may bid. And Mr. Carter was personally invited by a Hollowell." Thomas's face flushed with anger, but he nodded curtly to the auctioneer. $500,000 going once, going twice. The auctioneer glanced at the corpulent man, who shook his head slightly. "Sold to Mr. Isaiah Carter." The gavel crashed down with finality. Isaiah felt the room spinning slightly. What had he done? He didn't have $500,000. He barely had $500. As if reading his thoughts, Whitfield leaned over. "Don't worry about the money. Marcus arranged everything. He knew you'd bid." Before Isaiah could process this, Thomas was escorting a shell-shocked Amara toward him. "Mr. Carter," he said, each syllable dripping with disdain. Meet your new responsibility. Up close, Amara's eyes were even more fierce and now filled with suspicion as she assessed the stranger who had just bought her future. What's your game? She whispered, low enough that only Isaiah could hear. Isaiah met her gaze steadily. No game, just a promise to an old friend. Thomas cleared his throat. The papers will be drawn up immediately. The alliance is binding as of tonight. Around them, the crowd began to disperse, some offering congratulations, others barely disguising their curiosity or contempt. Isaiah had come to observe. Instead, he was leaving with a wife he didn't know, a debt he couldn't fathom, and the growing certainty that he had just changed the course of both their lives irrevocably. Sunlight streamed through unfamiliar curtains as Amara woke in the small guest bedroom of Isaiah's house. For a moment, disorientation clouded her mind before the previous night's events came rushing back. The auction, the bids, the stranger who had claimed her with words that changed everything. 500,000. She sat up abruptly, her hand instinctively reaching for her phone. 3 missed calls from her father, 7 from various aunts and cousins, and dozens of text messages. News traveled fast in their circles. She tossed the phone aside without responding. Downstairs, voices drifted up, a man and a child, the widower and his son. Her new, owner? Husband? The thought made her stomach churn. When she finally descended the stairs, dressed in yesterday's clothes, she found Isaiah at the kitchen table helping a young boy with breakfast. Both looked up as she entered. Morning, Isaiah said, his voice carefully neutral. This is my son Tyrell. Ty, this is Miss Amara. The boy regarded her with curious eyes. Are you gonna be my new mom? Tyrell, Isaiah admonished, embarrassment coloring his face. No, Amara said flatly, addressing the boy directly. I'm not going to be anyone's mother, I'm just staying here for a while. Isaiah winced. Ty, why don't you go get ready for school? Bus comes in 20 minutes. When the boy had left, Amara crossed her arms. We need to talk about what happened. Isaiah nodded, gesturing to a chair. Coffee? I don't want coffee. I want explanations, she said, but sat anyway. The entire Hollowell social circle is buzzing. The widower has taken a new bride. My father is furious. My reputation is in tatters. Not that I particularly care what those vultures think. I wasn't planning to bid, Isaiah began. Then why did you? She demanded. Because Marcus asked me to look out for you. Because that man, who was bid, Gerald Ames, she supplied, grimacing. Twice divorced. Known for his traditional views on women, and his wandering hands. Marcus knew someone like him might win. He asked me to prevent that. Amara's eyes narrowed. So this was orchestrated by my dying uncle? Not exactly, Isaiah said carefully. He invited me to observe, but Whitfield implied Marcus had anticipated I might bid. And the money? $500,000 is a lot for a carpenter. Isaiah looked uncomfortable. Apparently, Marcus arranged it. I don't have those kinds of resources. So my uncle bought me for you. Amara's laugh was brittle. How thoughtful. No one bought you, Isaiah insisted. I was trying to help. Help? Amara stood abruptly. Do you have any idea what you've done? Under our family's twisted traditions, we're now legally bound in a union that can only be broken if both parties publicly annul it. Then let's annul it, Isaiah said reasonably. Not that simple. An annulment brings shame to both families. My father would use it as proof of my instability and have me declared unfit to manage my own affairs, including the trust fund I access at 21. I'd be under his control indefinitely. Isaiah paled. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. You walked into centuries of toxic family dynamics, with no understanding of the consequences. She paused, softening slightly at his genuine distress. But I suppose your intentions were not entirely self-serving. The front door bell rang, interrupting them. Isaiah opened it to find a courier holding an envelope bearing the Hollowell family seal. Delivery for Mr. and Mrs. Carter, the man said robotically. Isaiah accepted the envelope, closing the door before turning to Amara. You'd better see this. Inside was a letter from Thomas Hollowell, its formal language barely masking his rage. along with legal documents confirming their union under the family's traditional law. A bank statement showed the transfer of the bid amount to the Hollowell family accounts, and most surprisingly, a smaller note in a different handwriting. Marcus's. Isaiah, forgive the deception. I knew you'd do the right thing when faced with the moment. Amara needs time away from my brother's influence. The marriage is binding by our traditions, but not by state law. It buys her 6 months of protection. Use them wisely. Amara read the note twice before looking up at Isaiah. 6 months? She murmured. 6 months of freedom from my father. What happens after 6 months? Isaiah asked. According to our family law, after 6 months, either party can petition for dissolution without the other's consent. A heavy silence fell between them as they processed the implications. So we stay married temporarily, Isaiah finally said. You get away from your father's control. I fulfill my promise to Marcus. Tyrell appeared, backpack in hand. Dad, I'm gonna miss the bus. Isaiah checked his watch. I'll drive you. When he returned 20 minutes later, he found Amara staring out the window at his modest workshop. I can't stay here, she said quietly. Your life is complicated enough. You have a son, a business. Where else would you go? Back to your father? Her silence was answer enough. Look, Isaiah said, this situation isn't ideal for either of us. But maybe we can make it work for 6 months. I have a spare room. You're safe here. Why would you do this for a stranger? Suspicion laced her voice. Isaiah thought of Regina, of the promises they'd made to each other, of Marcus's unwavering support during her illness. Because someone once helped me when I needed it most, he said simply. And because it's the right thing to do. Amara studied him for a long moment, weighing his sincerity against a lifetime of learning to distrust men's motives. 6 months, she finally agreed. Not a day more. 2 weeks into their arrangement, the small house felt more like a battleground than a home. Amara moved through the rooms like a ghost, quiet and watchful, while Isaiah maintained a careful distance, burying himself in his workshop from dawn till dusk. You're avoiding me, Amara said one evening, appearing in the workshop doorway. Isaiah looked up from the dining table he was restoring. Figured you'd prefer the space. Is that what you'd want? If you were suddenly living with a stranger because your family treated you like property? The bitterness in her voice was palpable. Isaiah set down his sandpaper. No, I'd want someone to talk to me like a person. The honesty in his response seemed to catch her off guard. She stepped further into the workshop, eyes taking in the projects in various stages of completion. Your work is beautiful, she admitted reluctantly. Where did you learn? My father, Isaiah said, returning to his sanding. He built houses all his life, taught me everything I know. My father taught me to be decorative and silent. Amara said, trailing her fingers along a bookshelf waiting for finish. Hollows don't build things, we inherit them. Isaiah glanced up, catching the yearning in her expression as she touched the wood. Want to try? He held out sandpaper. She hesitated, then took it. Under his guidance, she began smoothing the table's surface, her movements gradually becoming more confident. For the first time since she'd arrived, the tension between them eased slightly. I was studying pre-law, she confessed later, as they worked side by side. Online classes, behind my father's back. He found my acceptance letter from Howard University. That's when he decided to auction me off before I completely disgraced the family. That's why Marcus was so concerned, Isaiah murmured. He knew what your father was doing. Uncle Marcus was the only one who ever encouraged me. He has a daughter about my age, my cousin Eliza. She got to go to college. She got to choose. Amara's voice caught, but then her mother wasn't a scandalous match like mine. Isaiah looked up. What do you mean? Amara stiffened, realizing she'd revealed too much. Nothing. Family drama. That night, Tyrell had a nightmare. Isaiah heard his son's cries and rushed to his room, but was surprised to find Amara already there, sitting on the edge of Tyrell's bed. It's okay, she was saying softly. It was just a dream. I saw Mom, Tyrell whispered, his small body trembling. She was calling me, but I couldn't reach her. Isaiah's heart broke all over again as he watched his son grieve. He moved to step into the room, but something made him pause. I lost my mom too, Amara was saying. I was 7, cancer. Terrell looked up at her with tear-stained cheeks. Dad says Mom's in heaven. Mine too, Amara smiled gently. And I think they can see us. So when you miss her you can talk to her. She'll hear you. Does that work? Tyrell asked hopefully. It helps me, Amara admitted. She glanced up, finally noticing Isaiah in the doorway. Something vulnerable flashed across her face before she composed herself. Your dad's here. Try to get some sleep, okay? Later, Isaiah found her in the kitchen, staring out the window at the night sky. Thank you, he said quietly, for helping Ty. Amara nodded. He's a good kid. You never mentioned losing your mother. You never asked. She turned to face him. There's a lot we don't know about each other, Isaiah. Yet here we are, playing house. We're not playing anything, Isaiah corrected gently. We're just surviving. Something in his words seemed to resonate with her. Yes, she said softly, that's what I've been doing my whole life. Surviving. In the days that followed, small changes began to take place. Amara started joining them for dinner instead of eating alone. She helped Tyrell with his homework, discovering he shared her love of books. She began spending more time in the workshop, finding peace in creating something with her hands. One rainy afternoon, while Tyrell was at a friend's house, Amara found a box of photographs in the closet of the spare room. She shouldn't have looked, but curiosity won out. Inside were memories of a life before her arrival. Isaiah and a beautiful woman with Tyrell's eyes, laughing on a beach. The same woman cradling an infant Tyrell. A wedding photo, the couple radiating joy. Regina? Isaiah said from the doorway, startling her. I'm sorry, Amara said quickly, closing the box. I shouldn't. It's okay, he sat beside her, reopening the box. She would have liked you. How can you say that? You don't even know me. I know you're kind to my son. I know you're brave enough to stand up to your father. I know you want more from life than what people tell you to accept. He pulled out a photo of Regina in graduation robes. She was the same way. What happened to her? Amara asked softly. Cancer. Like your mother. 2 years ago. That's why you took that loan from Marcus, isn't it? For her treatment. Isaiah looked surprised. How did you know about that? My father complained about it. Said Marcus was wasting family money on charity cases. She studied his face. You're still paying it back, aren't you? Even with your own struggles. A debt is a debt, Isaiah said simply. Amara thought about the $500,000 her father had received for her. About the money that had changed hands to buy and sell people's futures. About debts of gratitude and obligation that couldn't be measured in dollars. Not all debts can be repaid, she said quietly, reaching for the photo of Regina. Some losses leave holes nothing can fill. Isaiah's eyes met hers with sudden understanding. For the first time, they saw each other not as reluctant players in an awkward arrangement, but as two people who had survived similar wounds. Maybe, he said softly, we stopped trying to fill them and just learned to live with the empty spaces. 3 months into their arrangement, life had fallen into an unexpected rhythm. Amara had transformed the spare room into a study space. Resuming her online pre-law courses, Isaiah found himself smiling more. Especially when he returned from work to find Amara and Tyrell engaged in animated discussions about books or helping each other with projects. The peace shattered on a crisp autumn morning when a sleek black car pulled up outside the house. Thomas Hollowell had come to reclaim his daughter. Amara, he called, his voice carrying the authority of generations of wealth and power. This charade has gone on long enough. Isaiah stepped onto the porch, placing himself between Thomas and the door. Mr. Hollowell, Amara doesn't want to see you. Thomas's cold eyes assessed Isaiah with undisguised contempt. I don't believe we've been properly introduced. I was indisposed during the auction proceedings. Isaiah Carter. Yes, Marcus's charity project. Thomas's smile never reached his eyes. I understand my brother had a soft spot for you. Paid for your wife's medical bills, did he not? Such generosity. Isaiah's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. I've come to make you an offer, Mr. Carter. Thomas withdrew an envelope from his suit jacket. $100,000, cash, to annul this farce of a marriage and return my daughter to her rightful place. That's not my decision to make. $200,000, Thomas countered smoothly. Enough to pay off your mortgage, send your boy to college someday. All you have to do is sign these papers. He produced a legal document, a declaration that the union was entered under false pretenses. The door opened behind Isaiah. Amara stood there, her face a mask of cold fury. Still trying to buy and sell people, father? Amara. Thomas's voice softened with practiced precision. You've made your point. This little rebellion has gone on long enough. This isn't rebellion. This is my life. A life you're ill-equipped to manage, Thomas replied sharply. Look at you, playing house with a widower and his child. What would your mother think? Amara flinched as if slapped. Don't you dare invoke her memory. 300,000, Thomas said to Isaiah, ignoring his daughter. Final offer. Isaiah met Amara's eyes briefly before turning back to Thomas. Not interested. Thomas's facade cracked, revealing the rage beneath. You'll regret this, both of you. After he left, Amara's hands were shaking so badly that Isaiah guided her to a chair. You okay? He won't stop, she whispered. He never stops until he gets what he wants. Her prediction proved accurate. Within days, whispers began circulating through town. Isaiah's business customers suddenly canceled orders. The bank called about concerns regarding his mortgage. Tyrell came home from school in tears after classmates repeated ugly rumors about his father and that rich girl he bought. The final blow came a week later, a summons from the Hollowell Family Council. He's claiming you're an unfit husband, Amara explained, her voice hollow as she read the formal letter. That the marriage should be annulled on grounds of your moral and financial inadequacy. Can he do that? The council adjudicates disputes under family law. Their decisions carry weight. She looked up, fear evident in her eyes. If they rule in his favor, I'll have to return to the estate. The hearing was set for the following Saturday at the Hollowell estate. As they drove through the imposing gates, Amara reached for Isaiah's hand. Whatever happens in there, she said quietly. Thank you. These months have been the first time I've felt free. The council chamber was intimidating. Dark wood paneling, portraits of stern ancestors, and a semicircle of chairs where 7 elder members of the Hollowell family sat in judgment. Thomas stood confidently before them, while Isaiah and Amara took seats at a small table opposite. This proceeding concerns the union between Amara Hollowell and Isaiah Carter, announced the eldest council member, a formidable woman in her 80s. Thomas Hollowell has filed a petition for annulment. Thomas presented his case with practiced eloquence, painting Isaiah as an opportunist who had exploited Marcus's good nature and Amara as a confused young woman in need of guidance. Mr. Carter lacks the means to support my daughter in the manner to which she is entitled, Thomas concluded. His background, his finances, and his social standing make him manifestly unsuitable as a match for a Hollowell. When it was their turn, Isaiah stood, but before he could speak, Amara rose. I wish to address the council, she said firmly. A murmur ran through the room. Women rarely spoke at council proceedings. Amara, Thomas warned. This isn't appropriate. Let her speak, the elderly councilwoman commanded. Amara straightened her shoulders. For 19 years I've lived under my father's control. I've been told how to dress, how to speak, what to think. When I dared to dream of law school, I was punished, offered up to the highest bidder like property. She gestured toward Isaiah. This man bid for me not out of greed or lust, but compassion. In his home I've been treated with more respect in 3 months than I received in 19 years on this estate. Whispers erupted among the council members. Furthermore, Amara continued, her voice gaining strength, I've discovered documents in Uncle Marcus's personal files. She withdrew a folder from her bag, legal amendments to the family code that he was preparing before his death. Thomas paled. What are you talking about? Amara handed the papers to the council. Uncle Marcus amended the legacy laws to grant more autonomy to female members of the family, including the right to choose their own futures after a transition period. The elderly councilwoman examined the documents, her expression unreadable. These appear to be in order, bearing Marcus's seal. According to these amendments, Amara has the right to determine her own course after 6 months in a sanctioned union. 3 more months, Amara said, meeting her father's enraged gaze steadily. Then I'll be free of your control, legally, and permanently. Thomas lunged forward. This is preposterous. Marcus was ill, not in his right mind. Enough. The councilwoman's voice cracked like a whip. The council will deliberate. During the tense wait that followed, Isaiah leaned close to Amara. Where did you find those documents? A small, secretive smile played at her lips. I didn't, but I knew Uncle Marcus well enough to know he would have prepared something. I gambled that they wouldn't risk contradicting him publicly. Isaiah stared at her in amazement. You bluffed the entire council? I learned something from you, Isaiah. She whispered. Sometimes you have to build the reality you need from whatever materials you have on hand. 3 months passed with surprising swiftness. Winter gave way to the first tentative buds of spring, mirroring the quiet transformation taking place within the walls of Isaiah's modest home. Amara had turned the workshop's neglected corner into a community legal aid center, offering free consultations to those who couldn't afford attorney fees. Word spread quickly, and soon people from all over town were seeking her advice on landlord disputes, workplace discrimination, and custody battles. You're good at this, Isaiah observed one evening, watching her organize case notes. Better than good. Amara looked up, a pen tucked behind her ear. It's what I was meant to do. Help people navigate systems designed to exclude them. He nodded toward her laptop, where an email from Howard University Law School sat open. You going to accept? The scholarship covers tuition, but not living expenses. She hesitated. DC is expensive. You'll find a way, Isaiah said, with quiet confidence. You always do. In the kitchen, Tyrell was setting the table for dinner, comfortable now in the presence of the woman who had become something between a sister and a friend to him. He had started calling her Mora, a nickname only he was allowed to use. Tonight was special, exactly 6 months since the auction. The deadline Marcus had arranged. Tomorrow, Amara would be legally free to dissolve their arrangement and claim her independence, including access to her trust fund. Dinner was a subdued affair, the unspoken reality of Amara's impending departure hanging over them. Afterward, Tyrell hugged her tightly before heading upstairs. He's going to miss you, Isaiah said as they cleared the dishes. I'll miss him too. Amara carefully dried a plate, her movements deliberate. I'll miss both of you. They worked in silence for a moment, before Isaiah spoke again. My client finally paid for that custom dining set. It's not much, but it might help with those living expenses in DC. Amira set down the dish towel. Isaiah, I'm not taking your money. It's not charity, consider it payment for all the work you've done in the workshop. He smiled slightly. You're a pretty decent carpenter now. Thanks to you, she leaned against the counter, studying his face. You've given me more than I can ever repay, a safe home, respect, space to find myself. Isaiah shook his head. You did all that on your own. I just provided the workshop. Outside, the first spring rain began to fall, a gentle patter against the windows. Amara walked to the back door and stepped onto the covered porch, breathing in the scent of renewal. Isaiah followed, standing beside her in comfortable silence. I've been thinking about what happens next, she said finally. Law school. Your trust fund. The future you've always wanted, Isaiah replied, ignoring the hollow feeling in his chest. Yes, but... She turned to face him. The contract is fulfilled. I'm free to leave now. Their eyes met in the dim porch light. Do you want to? He asked softly. For the first time since he'd known her, Amara smiled without a trace of pain or bitterness. No, she said simply. Not anymore. Isaiah felt something tight in his chest begin to unravel. Amara, wait, she said gently. I need to say this. Whatever happens between us now has to be a choice, not an obligation or a pact or a promise to someone else. He nodded, understanding completely. Your path is just beginning. I would never want to hold you back. You don't, she said with surprising fierceness. You push me forward. You always have. She gestured toward the workshop where her legal center had taken shape. Look what I've built here, what we've built together. Isaiah looked at the determined young woman before him, so different from the angry, frightened girl he'd bought 6 months ago. She had blossomed not because of him, but because she finally had the freedom to become herself. And he had changed too. The grief that had paralyzed him for 2 years had eased. He was smiling again, planning for the future instead of just surviving day to day. Tyrell was happier, more secure. I think Regina would approve, he said quietly. Of all of this. I know my mother would, Amara replied. She always taught me to follow my heart, even when my father tried to silence her voice. The rain fell harder now, drumming on the roof. Tomorrow would bring decisions, plans, practical matters to sort through. Law school applications, trust fund paperwork, the reality of careers and futures that might pull in different directions. But tonight, standing together on the porch of a house that had become home to both of them, none of that seemed insurmountable. So what do we do now? Isaiah asked. Amara reached for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. We start over. Not as a transaction or an arrangement or a debt to be paid. As what then? As two people who chose each other, she said simply. Not because of a gavel coming down or a dying man's wish or a father's control. She squeezed his hand, just because we want to. The last barrier between them, the uncomfortable reality of how they had come together, finally dissolved. What remained was something neither of them had expected. A foundation built on respect, understanding and growing affection. Isaiah gently touched her cheek. I think I can live with that. Good. Amara whispered, because I've already sent in my application to Georgetown Law. It's only a train ride from here. His surprise gave way to a smile. You've been planning this? I'm a lawyer in training, Isaiah. I always have contingency plans. As the spring rain washed away the last vestiges of winter, they stood together on the threshold of something neither had been looking for, but both had found regardless. Not the pact that had brought them together, but the choice to remain so, freely given and joyfully received.